Welcome to Healthy Living, Healthy Planet Radio, sponsored by EarthX, the world's largest environmental experience, and also sponsored by Natural Awakenings magazine. Live your healthiest life on a healthier planet. Now, here's your host, Bernice Butler.
Welcome to Healthy Living, Healthy Planet Radio today. We are now in our fourth season, nearing the end of our fourth season, actually, but we remain just as excited as ever to continue to help you explore and understand that unbreakable relationship between your health and the health of the planet. Here we look at the hottest topics related to our environment and its sustainability and how they affect your health and wellness. Here, issues like climate change, plastic pollution, extreme weather events, and others will meet up with everyday impacts like allergies and asthma, digestive issues and gut health, cancers, lung, heart issues, and more. So listen in today for our very special feature on celebrating World Environment Day. And today we're going to have a conversation that we're looking forward to with the United Nations Environment Program. And we're excited about that and really want to dig into that and let you know why it's important to all of us. It's really in a world that's becoming increasingly aware of the importance of environmental conservation, though perhaps not fast enough. Then World Environment Day serves as a light of hope and a call to action. Since it began, I believe in 1974, it's been an annual event that's celebrated on the 5th of June, and the purpose of it is to raise global awareness, our individual awareness about environmental issues, and to encourage us to think toward positive change. So as we approach this year's World Environment Day, then we are excited about the opportunity to interview representatives from that United Nations Environment Program to help us unpack and understand this a lot more. Now, they've got a legacy of over 50 years, and the United Nations Environment Program has played a really pivotal role in promoting sustainable development as well as advocating for the protection of our natural resources. And so as probably the premier environmental authority within the UN system, then UNEP is what they call it. They push forward in initiatives and they guide policy and they help to bring about international cooperation to really try and address on the global level the pressing environmental challenges of our times. And so now, as we talk to them today, we're going to try to unpack and understand their core mission and how it affects our day-to-day lives and what it means to us. And many times we don't have the opportunity to connect those dots. But because of UNEP and them being at the forefront of these global efforts to address climate change, then we can be encouraged about things such as biodiversity loss, pollution, and some other environmental issues that are getting the attention that they need. So World Environment Day is been used by them as a platform actually every year to amplify what they do and to have ordinary people understand what's going on. So without further ado on that, we want to go ahead and introduce our guest today from the United Nations Environment Program. Because again, the purpose and the point and the things that World Environment Day points out are important to everyone, all of us who walk upon the earth. So here today to make us smarter about this are Daniel Cooney. And Daniel is director of the UNEP Communications Department. And he's been an advisor to even the Afghan government in dealing with their propaganda from the Taliban. As well, he's worked with the Associated Press there. And prior to coming to work for UNEP, then Daniel was really with the Center for International Forestry Research. And so he's got some deep roots in the environmental community. And when he was with Forestry Research, he developed multi-million-dollar programs to foster communication, to push forth research, as well as practical on-the-ground work to move them forward in their environmental issues. Our other guest is Mara Correa. Mara is a program officer in intergovernmental affairs at UNEP at their New York office. And she joined them in May of 2008 as Deputy Regional Director for their regional office for Latin America, and she's got just a broad range of experience in sustainable development and in environmental policy. Welcome, Mara. Did I get all of that right?
Very much. Yes, Madam Murillo.
Thank you so much. We're so glad you could make time to be with us. And welcome to you, Daniel. Did I get all of that right? You're calling from far, far away in Kenya, so thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Bernice. Thank you for having us. Yeah, I'm dialing in here from the global headquarters for the United Nations Environment Program, which is in Nairobi, Kenya.
Well, thank you. We're just really excited that you could be with us. And also with us today is Trammell Crow. Trammell Crow is here with us in Dallas, and he is an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, and a avid environmentalist. He is founder EarthX, which is, they like to say, the world's largest environmental experience. And there's certainly an institutional anchor at this point, I think, on the international stage. Thank you for being with us, Trammell. Welcome.
Thank you.
Well, I want to start out with you, Daniel, and just tell us, why is World Environment Day celebrated on June 5th of every year? Is there any significance there? And how did UNEP come about pushing forth World Environment Day and moving forth its purposes?
Sure. Okay. So June 5 is, in a sense, my organization's birthday. It is the day back in 1972 when countries from around the world came together in Stockholm, Sweden, for a conference which led to a recommendation to the United Nations to set up United Nations Environment Program, which last year celebrated its 50th anniversary and is the leading voice within the United Nations system on the environment. And so we have a focus on what we refer to as the triple planetary crises. That's the crisis of climate change, the crisis of biodiversity loss, and the crisis of chemicals and pollution. And June 5 is our main day in the year in which we advocate for action for the environment around the world. It's a little bit like Earth Day, which is very popular in North America on April 22, and where Earth Day has huge resonance with people in North America. World Environment Day has that same sort of level of resonance around the world.
So now, what's the significance of World Environment Day to everyday people, just in our everyday lives? Why should we care? Why must we care? Why is it not an option not to care?
Well, environmental action comes about when people are aware of an issue and they push their leaders to take action on that. Right now in Paris, there is a global meeting of countries from all around the world in which countries are negotiating for a legally binding treaty to tackle the plastic pollution crisis. That has come about because people have learned about plastic pollution. They've learned that they've seen it in their day-to-day lives, and they have made their voices heard, demanding action from their leaders. And then their leaders came together at the United Nations Environment Assembly last year, and this is all countries represented, and they agreed to establish this body that is now negotiating for this treaty. So,
and then that's your theme for this year's World Environment Day, right? Is plastics?
Yeah, the theme is solutions to plastic pollution.
So every year you have different themes. What was your theme like last year?
Well, last year the theme was Only One Earth, which was the same because it was the 50th anniversary of that conference in Sweden, which had the same theme, Only One Earth. And that was sort of the rallying cry for countries that came together to try to take action with this sort of tagline that we have one Earth. It's the only Earth we have, and we have to save it. So that was the theme for World Environment Day last year. Okay,
well, we're going to go ahead and go to break, and we'll be right back on the other side, and then let's look at and get to and dig into this year's theme. We'll be right back with Dan Cooney and Mara Correa with the United Nations Environment Program and our guest host, Trammell Crow. Thank you so much. We'll be right back on the other side. We want to give a shout out now to our sponsors. That is Natural Awakenings, Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex Magazine, the Green, Healthy, and Sustainable Living Authority for the DFW Metroplex and North Texas communities. Print issues of Natural Awakenings can be found in all H-E-B markets, natural grocers, central markets, sunflower shops, and many, many other locations, as well as available free for download online at nadallas.com. Check them out. Our other sponsor is North Haven Gardens, serving the Metroplex since 1951, the most respected horticultural establishment in North Texas, offering gardening and plant education, concierge services, DIY classes, gifts, and more. Check them out at nhg.com. And our other sponsor is Lynn Dental Care, practicing dentistry for over 38 years with a holistic approach, looking at the whole body, and non-mercury. Specializing in periodontics, Dr. Lynn is board certified by the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology. Check them out at lindentalcare.com. Thank you, sponsors. Welcome back to Healthy Living, Healthy Planet Radio today. To our special interview today with our representatives from the United Nations Environment Program, and we are talking about celebration of World Environment Day on June 5th. And we're very excited about this, and they are making us smarter about all of this and really helping us to dig deep into why to care about this is not an option for us either. So before the break, Dan, and I've been calling Dan Cooney, have George Clooney on the mind, Dan Cooney, who is in Nairobi, Kenya, with the United Nations Environment Program headquarters. And we've also got Mara, who's with them in New York City. But Dan, before the break, we were just kind of moving into this year's theme. You were telling us about last year's theme, and we just wanted to get a sense of the flow of the types of things that you all really helped us to get accomplished and things that you all help us to move forward with. So tell us about the plastics theme for this year. How did y'all come about the focus on plastics for this year?
Well, I was going to say this is a year for action on plastics, as I was saying, that right leading up to World Environment Day for 2 weeks, almost all countries in the world have had negotiators in Paris who have been on this journey to negotiating towards a legally binding treaty to tackle plastic pollution. And while they are making progress, we also need to broaden awareness among everybody in the world about the urgent need for action on plastics and highlight the many solutions that are out there. And when it comes to plastic pollution, this is such a highly visible type of pollution. You know, every day, the equivalent of 2,000 garbage trucks of plastic is being dumped into our waterways, into our oceans, into our lakes, into our rivers. We are all breathing in these microplastics in the air. We're eating it in the food we eat. It's in the water we drink. There was a research recently in North America that showed that the average adult was consuming something like 50,000 tiny particles of plastic every year. So this has become a form of pollution that is in all of our lives. This plastic is made up of chemicals that have been shown to be damaging to people's health. And so it's a moment in which the world has realized that we have to come together and we need to find solutions that are going to tackle this problem. And that's what World Environment Day is about. Indeed.
And you mentioned that plastic has a negative impact on our health. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, what we can say is that there is research to show that it's in all of us. And as I said, it's in the food and the water that we consume. It's in the air we breathe. And what we do know are the chemicals that go into that plastic. Where the science is not yet conclusive is, well, actually then, what is the impact of all of that microplastic in our bodies. How is that hurting us? And this is where there's still a lot of science to tell that story. There's a lot of science that needs to come.
Indeed. And, that's one of our monthly themes here at Healthy Living, Healthy Planet Radio. We do 12 themes a year, and one of them is just a whole month of shows that is devoted to plastic pollution. So indeed, I don't know if it was the United Nations, or probably, or maybe someone else, who has really said that plastic pollution should be declared as our global health emergency in terms of, all of the many and varied issues that it's causing us. And then there's, I think one of you all, too, it may have been Mara, was involved in marine life. And because I understand, too, that there's significant environmental impact and really an impact on our daily lives from the plastic pollution's effect on the ocean. Mara, can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that already Daniel has covered part of it when we are saying that all these different plastics that are thrown away by people and that doesn't finish in a landfill or is not recycled, because we have to understand that 46% of plastic waste is landfill, 22% becomes litter, 17% is incinerated, and only 15% is collected for recycling. And it is not really the recycling the solution. We really need to have circularity in plastics that requires the reuse, the recycling, and reorienting and diversifying of plastics to more sustainable alternatives. And in that sense, when the plastics comes to the oceans, it has an impact in ocean life. We know that some of the species entangle in these plastics and then they die. We also know that many of these plastics are in the middle of the oceans and have created these islands that have an impact also in terms of the pollution. And of course, a lot of those at the end get to another place, another beaches around the world, also causing an impact there. And in addition to that, that already was mentioned by Daniel, it's also the impact of plastic pollution in terms of greenhouse emissions. The plastic production has an impact, 3.4% of global total in 2019 of the greenhouse emissions were a product or a result of plastic. So I think we need to consider all these different impacts that plastics have, and specifically the need to reduce, importantly, and redesign the products so we can reduce the amount of plastic that is around the world.
Plastic is just ubiquitous in our day-to-day lives. We can't avoid it. And as you just tried to center us on, is that we impact or engage with plastic so often. I think you all use the term life cycle approach. Can you talk about that?
Yes, well, what the life cycle approach refers to is to how we address all the stages of plastic life cycle, from the production to the consumption to waste management to reducing pollution and waste at each stage. So really, it brings the whole cycle of life of a product from when it was produced till the end it was consumed, discarded, recycled, etc. So this is what we are speaking about. And for example, when we speak about ordinary people like us in our daily life, what we can do, of course, is avoid single-use plastics whenever possible. For example, no bottle of water that we discussed. We can have a reusable water bottle. We can use, when we go to the supermarket, to the grocery store, also we can have our own bags instead of using plastic bags. We can ensure that we don't purchase or buy over-packaged products with plastics. We'll see in a lot of the grocery stores that all the vegetables have a lot of plastics in the packaging. So we can avoid those kind of things because those are going to go to the landfill, and there's no way of. And I think this is things that we can avoid as consumers, as people in our everyday life.
Indeed. Thank you for that. It's all around us. It's probably what we know and can't avoid. But I'm glad for this opportunity to talk to you all as experts to get people really focused on the impact of plastics in our life and how we can look at it from that life cycle approach and know that there are a number of ways to intervene. Now, Trammell, do you have anything for either of them before I go back?
Plastics, I'm glad that they're bringing such attention to it. All the statistics that they're citing are all true, and there's an incredibly dire situation that if we continue business as usual, we'll be swimming in plastic. I've heard, Dan and Maria, maybe you can confirm, that it exists in every cell of our bodies.
I'm not sure if it's in every cell of our bodies, but it's in all of our bodies. That I think the science is quite clear, and it's in every continent. You go to the Arctic, go to Antarctica. Scientists have found it there. It's in 90% of all birds and fish, and then we are then and it's in animals, and we are then going ahead and eating the birds, the fish, and the animals. So it's everywhere.
And we don't know the consequences of it. We can't put it in our baby children without knowing the consequences. Earth Day was primarily kicked off by the average middle-class housewife in America because she was worried about her children. And that's what needs to happen on plastic.
Well, in fact, I think that when we speak also about our clothing, it's also a lot of microplastics in the clothing. And I think we have to be careful about what kind of clothes, the materials and fabrics you use. Is, for example, in the creams that a lot of girls use to scrub
it's all
skin.
Around us.
So it's all around us, and there are alternatives to those products that we can also, as consumers, find in the markets and try to use just to substitute the high-impact products on plastic.
Indeed, and we're going to have to go to break now. Thank you, Mara, and we'll be right back on the other side with Dan Cooney and Mara Correa with the United Nations Environment Program and our guest host, Trammell Crow. Thank you all. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Living, Healthy Planet Radio today, to our special show for our opportunity to interview with our experts from the United Nations Environment Program. We've got Daniel Cooney and we've got Mara Correa back with us with our guest host, Trammell Crow. And we are talking about World Environment Day, and the theme of which is plastics, and they are making us smarter about all of this. So thank all of you all for being with us today. I want to go to Daniel here right now to tell us about, you say, what are the benefits of investing in a new plastics economy? Talk to people about this. What do you mean, a new plastics economy? We have, talked today, and I think well established how plastics are all around us. We can't get away. Well, we can't. It seems like we can't get away from them, but I think that we can. So talk to us about the benefits of investing in a new plastic economy and what that means to people in their day-to-day lives.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, Bernice. So, picture this. Plastic, it comes from oil. We're digging, we're pumping the oil out of the ground. We are turning it into plastics of all different types. Almost half of that plastic is used only once, and then we throw it out. And the bulk of that is either going into landfills, it's being burnt, or it's ending up in the environment. So we have this linear system of pumping out oil, this very valuable resource, using it largely once and throwing it away. That's a massive waste. And so we need to change that linear system into a circular system where we are redesigning products so that they can live within a loop economy, within a circular economy. So once they are used, they can then be repurposed. They can be reused. And that valuable product can stay within a loop, is not just thrown away. Right now, it is cheaper to create plastic using virgin oil than it is using recycled plastic. That has to change. There has to be financial incentives that enable recycling, that create this loop, that products need to be redesigned so that there's a whole range of different types of plastics, many of them using toxic chemicals that go into them. So products need to be redesigned so that they can exist in this loop, because we're creating value and then we're just throwing that value away. And that is a huge waste in addition to the pollution that we're seeing all around us.
And I think with plastic pollution, like with many other environmental issues, I don't know, for me, it simplifies it to put it into adaptation and mitigation. And this is one of those, so a lot needs to be done. So let me talk to you just a minute, though, about the historic resolution that happened earlier this month by the United Nations Environment Assembly, which you all say is a significant step toward and addressing the plastic pollution. Could you tell us about that?
Sure. So this happened in March of last year. So 193 member states that make up the United Nations Environment Assembly came together in Nairobi, Kenya, and it was the member states, so all the countries in the world, that decided, okay, this is a problem that needs to be a priority. And the countries agreed to establish what is called an intergovernmental negotiating committee on plastic pollution. And they set themselves a target by the end of 2024 to have negotiated a legally binding treaty to tackle plastic pollution. The first meeting happened last year in Uruguay, and member states then came together in the 2 weeks immediately prior to World Environment Day in Paris and took the next step forward in negotiating that treaty. After this, they have 3 more rounds of negotiations in which they will come together. But the goal is, end of next year, to have a draft treaty that can then go to member states to be ratified. And this is an incredibly ambitious timeline to negotiate a global treaty in a span of 2.5 years.
And so just to summarize that, though, and what is the end result of the expectation from the treaty? How are we going to know its impact, and what is going to be the timeline on that?
Well, that's up to member states in terms of the negotiation. And what we're seeing in these past couple of weeks in Paris is member states coming with their own approaches that they think the world should take in dealing with this crisis. And it's a case of negotiation. This is diplomacy. This is international diplomacy. And so we can't prejudge what this treaty is going to look like in 18 months. But what the world desperately needs is an ambitious treaty that can then be immediately implemented by member states all around the world.
And in terms of the United Nations Environment Program, in this theme, which I think is probably one of the best that we could have for this year of plastics, you put together campaigns and programs and things like that. Tell us about some of those things and what is going to be happening there as we move towards the end of our segment.
Well, World Environment Day, every World Environment Day, we see tens of millions of people around the world who take action for the environment. Sometimes that means going out, planting trees. It could be getting together a community group and picking up trash, cleaning up plastic pollution from your beaches. And we see tens of millions of people taking action outdoors and then joining a global conversation online, demanding action from their leaders, demanding action from the companies that they consume, the products that they consume. And demanding, action for the environment. And so this is what we expect to happen, throughout June 5, all around the world. There'll be thousands of activities going on, tens of millions of people have taken part in that. It's a tremendous outpouring of support for the environment.
Indeed.
And if I may add to what Daniel was just saying, it is also about asking government and governments taking their own responsibility on having regulations that reduce that amount of plastics and it has to do with reducing the subsidies that are negative to the environment. It has to do with supporting and incentivizing these new designs of products and promoting this circularity to regulations. And this is part of the discussions that are ongoing and what member states are trying to do through this agreement. There will be that agreement, and it was part of the discussion in Nairobi, some measures that will be binding to every single member state and that they will have to put in place. And there were some others that also have to be implemented by others, not only governments. But this is a problem where every single of us, the whole society, has a responsibility and has something to do, from individuals to non-governmental organizations to the science and research organizations, because they can also bring together information and they can also bring together research on new designs of products that can substitute those single plastics products or the use of plastics using different materials. So I think there's a whole society approach to this to really bring solutions to this crisis that we are living with the plastic pollution.
Thank you for that. And Trammell, last question for you. We only have about 3 minutes to go before we have to end our time with Dan and Mara.
What can the individual do? We can talk so long about organizations, international cooperation, but what would you all say? What are the things, Johnny, on the spot, today, the individual can do? We can say, do not give me that straw, thank you very much, which is something we started a couple of years ago and people don't do anymore. So, Maria and Daniel, can you toss out just a few things that the listener can do today and tomorrow?
Yes, I think we were speaking about that. I think, for example, is choosing reusable products over disposable ones. For example, plastic supermarket bags, use reusable ones. Use reusable water bottles instead of using disposable ones. Of course, ask supermarkets, restaurants, etc., to switch from single-use plastics to packaging and cutlery that is not single-use plastics. Also, to improve and ask authorities to improve waste management. And also in their own schools, they can do that request. So there are many things that one can do when we buy. We have the decision what products we buy and what products we consume.
And if I can just build on that, individual actions are very important. So reflecting on one's own lifestyle and saying, how do I reduce my plastic pollution footprint, right? That's important. But the most powerful thing, the most agency that we as individuals all have is our voice and our wallet. The voice, demand action from your policymakers, from your leaders. Demand that the products that you consume, reach out to those companies and say, I love your product, but I don't like how you package it. Give me this in a sustainable way. Take to social media, make your voice heard.
Can you give us probably one of the best websites really quickly where people can find out more about World Environment Day and the work that the United Nations Environment Program is doing?
Sure. If you just Google World Environment Day, it's going to take you to the World Environment Day website, where you can find out and see everything that's going on around the world.
Perfect. We have been with Daniel Cooney with the United Nations Environment Program, as well as Mara Correa with them as well, and our guest host, Trammell Crow, founder of EarthX, our own Dallas green businessman. Thank you all so much for listening. We appreciate it, and thank you all for being with us.
Save the world.
We're going to go to break now. And we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. That is Natural Awakenings, Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex Magazine, the Green, Healthy, and Sustainable Living Authority for the DFW Metroplex and North Texas communities. Print issues of Natural Awakenings can be found in all H-E-B stores, natural grocers, all central markets, sunflower shops, and many, many other locations, as well as available online at nadallas.com. Check them out. Our other sponsor is North Haven Gardens, serving the Metroplex since 1951, the most respected horticultural establishment in North Texas, offering gardening and plant education, concierge services, DIY classes, gifts, and more. Check them out at nhg.com. And our other sponsor is Lynn Dental Care, practicing dentistry for over 38 years with a holistic approach, looking at the whole body. Specializing in periodontics, Dr. Lynn is board certified by the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology. Check them out at lindentalcare.com. Thank you, sponsors. Welcome back to Healthy Living, Healthy Planet Radio today. We are now moving to our Pulse of the Community segment, where we're going to have the opportunity to talk to someone local here to talk about Clean Air Action Day here in North Texas. But I think Clean Air Action Day applies to a lot of people. So for this brief time we have with us today, Whitney Vandiver. And Whitney is with the North Central Texas Council of Governments. She works with their transportation division, and she leads their education and outreach program about all of the regional transportation and air quality initiatives work that they do here. And she's their communications person. Thank you, Whitney. We really appreciate you taking time to join us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Bernice.
And as I mentioned, we're back with our own green businessman, Trammell Crow, founder of EarthX, is with us. Thank you, Trammell, for being with us again today.
Hello, good morning.
Well, Whitney, start us out really quick. And what is Clean Air Action Day 2023? Who sponsors it? Who promotes it? Why is it, or how long has it been a thing?
All right. So Clean Air Action Day began in 2010. As you mentioned, it's sponsored by Air North Texas, which is our regional air quality awareness campaign that the North Central Texas Council of Governments leads with support from more than 30 regional partners composed of local governments, transit agencies, universities, and local organizations.
Well, what counties does that cover? So as people listen, they can know that.
Yeah. So the COG as a whole, which is what we call the North Central Texas Council of Governments, covers 16 counties in North Central Texas. But when we're talking about transportation and air quality, our transportation planning region is 12 counties. And then the air quality, when we're discussing air quality and ozone, there are 9 counties in North Central Texas that are classified as in non-attainment for ozone, which for the latest ozone standard that was designated by the EPA. And that includes Tarrant, Dallas County, Collin County, Parker, Denton, Wise, Johnson, Ellis, and Kaufman. So those are the 9 counties that have been designated as non-attainment for ozone under the latest standard that was designated in 2015.
Okay. And so that's kind of like that certainly includes all the Metroplex and all of our imaginations as to what the Metroplex might be in terms of that non-attainment. And that just means that our air quality is not good. And so your job is where all the counties are coming together and trying to act regionally, since we all have this problem. And we've had it for a while, haven't we?
Yeah. So Air North Texas actually was created to help with this struggle, to help put out consistent messaging about air quality and ozone in North Texas. And then in 2010, we sponsored the first Clean Air Action Day through Air North Texas, which is an awareness event that we host once a year. And we encourage North Texans to do at least one thing to help improve air quality. And we hope that by trying out a Clean Air Action in support of Clean Air Action Day, North Texans will see how easy it is, and then they can incorporate it into their regular routines. And then you might be wondering, what is a Clean Air Action? And that is really anything that can help reduce transportation emissions or trips where you're driving alone. So carpooling, taking your lunch to work, reducing idling, things like conserving electricity and water also help. And we have a list of simple actions that make a big difference on our website, airnorthtexas.org.
Tell us, though, a little bit more about the consequences of poor air quality. I like to try to always make it clear to people why they should care about this stuff.
Yeah, of course. So during ozone season, which in Texas, ozone season lasts from March through November, but the height of ozone season is May through September. So we're in it now. This is what we consider ozone season. And it means that it's possible for the ozone pollutant levels to increase. And then when that happens, when the ozone levels start getting higher, it can potentially cause negative health effects depending on the level of ozone and on the particular individual's health. So individuals with respiratory issues such as asthma might experience increased frequency of asthma attacks and healthcare needs. And then if you don't have any respiratory issues, you might still notice effects such as coughing or throat irritation and shortness of breath.
I think those of us who are allergy sufferers can also know about ozone days and have to care about those. Trammell.
Yeah, you've mentioned a few things about what the individual can do, but can you expand on that a little bit? Now, it's almost upon us. It's not like we can go prepare or organize. What can we do now to not just observe Clean Air Action Day, but to act upon it?
The idea behind Clean Air Action Day really is to show people how easy it is to do these things. So the hope is that you can kind of take this particular day to try something out, and then you'll see, oh, this isn't that bad. I could do this on a regular basis. So really, you could start any day you want to incorporate as an individual, to incorporate some of these things into your...
Let me interrupt you. You could start any day, but what you just said was really key. It's not this or that or the other. It's something you've never done before. Try something you've never done before. Ride the bike to work.
Exactly. Or carpool, even something that doesn't even take that much coordination in advance, like planning out, if you have errands to run, map out your route so that you're taking the most efficient route possible and combine those trips together. If you're going into an office, take your lunch to work so you're not having to take an extra trip out for lunch to go pick your lunch up. Reducing idling is a big thing that we like to promote. I know it's very tempting in Texas if you're waiting in a drive-through or picking your kids up from school to leave your car running for the air conditioner, but that all adds up. If everyone's sitting in their car with their vehicle running, that's
Whitney,
adding emissions.
Let me ask you a question there. I've heard the logic that it takes more energy to stop the car and turn it back on than to the savings by turning it off. So if you were going to turn it off and on, it wouldn't be worth it to do that for 5 seconds. What is the time cutoff there that it makes sense to do that?
Oh, great question. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I would have to get back to y'all on that and ask someone on our air quality technical team what they would recommend there. But yeah, that's a great point. This would be for probably at least 5 minutes or so. I'm just throwing that number out there.
To be honest, if it's 2 minutes, here's one that kills me. We have a caterer come to an event, or we have a delivery vehicle come, or some moving van, and it comes into your neighborhood and it parks in front of your house or your neighbor's house, and he leaves the engine on, or a limo. I guess I'm ranting here because it's not fair to ask the question, how do you stop that, Whitney? But how do we stop these big vehicles, these professional drivers who just have it in their mentality?
Yeah, we do have, aside from Air North Texas, there are some targeted efforts within the transportation department here at COG to address that issue. Programs and campaigns that are more commercial idling.
Whitney, isn't there a program? There's a number, I believe, that you can call when you see vehicles that are spewing forth nasty stuff.
Yeah, we have 2 programs separate from Air North Texas. One's called Engine Off North Texas, which if you see a vehicle idling, then you can report it. And when I say report it, I mean some of these programs, people might get a little bit, they're a little bit unsure about them because when you hear report, it sounds like you're snitching. It's really for the benefit of the person who you see idling to give them information about the consequences of idling. You're not going to get in trouble. It's just so that we can share information about steps you can take to change your behavior and why you might want to consider doing that. So Engine Off North Texas is one.
Yeah, I think a lot more needs to be put out there about that program, as well, really, as many of y'all's other programs. We have 1 minute to go, Whitney. So can you tell us, tell our listeners final things that you'd like for them to know about Air North Texas? And even though it was celebrated yesterday, my thing is it just like Earth Day is every day. Clean Air Day should be every day, especially for those of us here in North Texas and these other, the non-attainment issues that we have.
Yeah, the biggest thing I'd like to get listeners to take away from this is to sign up for air pollution alerts through our Air North Texas website. Because if you do that, then you'll get email notifications when ozone levels are predicted to reach a high level. And then these are the days when it's most important to incorporate cleaner actions into your routine. So if you do want to incorporate the message of Cleaner Action Day into your regular life, an easy way to do that would be to sign up for those air pollution alerts through airnorthtexas.org. And then you get that notification. And you can also go to our website, airnorthtexas.org, to look at a list of cleaner actions and figure out what works best for you.
Indeed. Thank you so much. And I think that's important, too, for, again, us allergy sufferers kind of keep up with that, too. Thank you so much. We have been with Whitney Vandiver with the North Central Texas Council of Governments talking to us about Clean Air Action Day, which we all agree should be every day. Thank you so much, Whitney. We really appreciate you joining us. And thank you, Trammell, our own green entrepreneur, philanthropist, conservationist who is founder of EarthX. Thank you for being with us. Your questions are so insightful as always. And thank you, listeners, for listening in today to Healthy Living, Healthy Planet Radio. The conversation starts here, and we have had two really fun conversations today. But it's our goal for those conversations to continue in your home, in your social circles, your workplaces, at the water cooler, and in the grocery checkout line, so that we can all work together to realize that healthy living is simply not possible without a healthy planet. Our culture is a result of 1 trillion tiny acts taken by billions of people every day like yourselves. And each of them can seem insignificant, but all of them add up in one way or the other to the change that we each live through. Thank you so much for listening today. This is your host, Bernice Butler, and join us again next week for more Healthy Living, Healthy Planet Radio, and listen to any of our past shows on podcast wherever you get yours. Thank you.